Welcome to the second session in the webinar series, Google Analytics for Agencies. Today's session, Exciting Insights with Lightspeed Analysis, we use the right tools to dive deep into your data to identify performance opportunities. I'm your host, Jen Nichols, and although I primarily work with agencies, the content of this webinar should be relevant to most online marketers or web analysts as well. Today, we'll review features such as complex and advanced segmentation as custom reports. It is you've already watched or mastered the contents of the first session, introducing the new version of Google Analytics. Watch that session or are not familiar with the new interface, you want to review that video. You can either by searching Analytics for Agencies on YouTube and looking for Introduce a New Version of Google Analytics, following the short link on the top right side of the page. For verification purposes, that is goo.gl/I5L_X. Series that meets once every 3 weeks at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. You can see the series dates on the right-hand side, but if you would like to sign up to receive an email reminder before each session, you follow the short link on the left and complete the registration form. Again, that link is goo.gl/NJ I5H. This session will help you understand how to dig or drill through data in GA, effectively understand and apply the concept of visitor segments, how to use the advanced toolkit within GA, such as custom reports and advanced segments and others, to identify and, again, better understand your most valuable or least valuable user segments. We're reviewing just what a segment is. A group of visitors within your data that have one or more characteristics in common. So you can see an example in the upper left. The characteristics is the one of region, and the one that we are identifying as an individual segment is California. Each of those regions or states is a segment, but to the upper right side, it's a combination of characteristics. And in our example, we've chosen the set of visitors who are from California and also came from Google as opposed to some other traffic source. And you can see that that segment is considerably smaller, about half that of the one of California. How to be almost any number of dimensions that we are grouping visitors by. So you can see in the bottom left example that the segment we're looking at is those from California who came to Google as opposed to any other traffic source, and who had a specific monitor size. And you can see that visitor segment is considerably smaller than the general one of California, and of course much smaller than your overall visitor group. Is this important? In any of these cases, as you slice your data into smaller and smaller segments, you are able to better identify their performance and evaluate whether they're overperforming or underperforming compared to other equally well-defined segments. This is the core concept within analysis. If you have a set of visitors that represent all of your web analytics, that is your data set, analysis is the process of looking at different ways just comprise that data. Again, it's the process of identifying dimensions along which you segment. To optimize visitor segments, in cases, segment becomes more distinct. So it means that your California traffic has a higher conversion rate along the goal that you've set than your traffic. Both of the segments, and the analysis says that California does better than New York as far as conversion rate. However, upon analysis, it could be that it's actually California CPC traffic that has a lower conversion rate than New York CPC traffic. Adding the additional dimension of medium and picking the segment CPC, you have a better understanding of who is converting with each segment and what you can do. So even if California traffic has a higher conversion rate than New York traffic, if you have the most control over CPC visitors, then it's more interesting for you to know that California's CPC traffic actually has a lower conversion rate than New York's CPC traffic, and you can act accordingly. We'll samples as we go on, but to help build on the understanding of what kinds of segments exist within your web traffic, within Google Analytics, we identified 3 types of segments: visit and ad segments. Segment is a group of visitors who have in common some quality about themselves or the way they got to your site. Some quality before they arrived on your site is the key idea here. And bidding on one or more visitor qualities, you can learn more about what visitors do once they arrive in your site. So the visitor qualities that you can investigate are what region or country or city they're from, what language their browser is set to, what source sent them to your website, whether or not they've been there before, if this is their first time, and what hour of the day they arrived. Again, these are qualities before they arrive or as they arrive on your site, before they've actually started their site visit. You can also investigate based on what technology they use to reach your site, or even if you have AdWords linked, what specific elements of your AdWords SEM campaigns sent visitors to your site. And again, we'll talk more about what it means to pivot on one of these dimensions. Here's some early examples of key segments within those dimensions. So for example, within region, you could be looking for the segment of visitors who are from the West Coast, in which you identify visitors from California, Washington, and Oregon. Looking at along the dimension of ad content, you could be looking at the segment of just those visitors who came through your recent promotional ad copy. You could be looking for the segment of visitors or the group of visitors who all came during the work hours of the day, so 9 through 2 p.m. in this example, or early work hours at least. Or you could be looking at the segment of your visitors who specifically came through what you identified as social traffic. Not all of these segments come automatically. Some of them require some configuration. We'll talk about that throughout this series. But generally, these visitor segments identify characteristics of a visitor before they arrived on your site. And once you've identified or pivoted around this segment, you can learn more about what these types of visitors do once they arrived on your site. Inside of that are visit segments. And visit segments are visitors who've shared some sort of common experience while on your site, regardless of where they came from or how they got there. By picking one or more visit qualities, you can understand what qualities of a visitor that is likely to send traffic that engages with your site in a specific way. So then, for specific examples, you could pivot around visitors who used your internal site search while on your site, who saw certain pages or even landed on certain pages. Visitors who triggered certain events or custom variables, both of which require additional page tags to be activated, so not all accounts will see that. Or you can see around the types of visitors who purchased certain products or came back within a certain number of days to purchase. And any e-commerce needs to be activated through the use of page level tags. They just not come automatically. Examples of visit segments to pivot around would be visitors who landed on a specific promotional landing page, visitors who played a video if you've defined that action with an event, visitors who've logged in as opposed to not logged in, who sent, what media or what geographies sent visitors who are logging in, and again, needs to be defined with tags. Visitors with site search. It's helpful to analyze sometimes what keywords are sending traffic who ended up using your site search functionality. It might indicate that that keyword actually didn't send to the right page. The segments that I've identified are action segments. If you try to group visitors along common dimensions, these segments group visitors along common metrics. And action segments are visitors who all behave in a certain way and therefore have common performance metrics. These relate visitors who meet or miss performance benchmarks that you've set around metrics such as goal conversion rate or pages per visit, and to identify where those visitors came from and what they didn't do on your site. Some common metrics to pivot around are visitors who have spent a certain amount of time on your site, did or didn't bounce, who may be new or returning, visitors who spent a certain time on each page or were triggered a certain number of events, visitors who complete or did not complete a goal or specific type of goal, or visitors who spent a certain amount on your site if you have e-commerce set up. And here are some specific examples of segments to pivot around. The example is visitors who did not bounce. To land on one page and leave immediately before viewing any other pages. And so you either bounced or did not bounce. It is a 0-1 equation in this example. Example are visitors who refined an internal site search more than twice, which means they were highly ineffective but dedicated to finding something within your site and may necessitate a view of your internal search functionality. This segment identifies the group of visitors who spent more than $100 in revenue with an e-commerce purchase. Final identifies visitors who completed at least one goal that you've identified on your site, greater than 0, at least 1. So we'll dive into the Google Analytics account for the Google Analytics blog there and do our analysis there. And I'll remind you that this information in some cases is not always ideal, since a blog does not necessarily reflect the most common Google Analytics user, but we'll be trying to teach to some of the fundamental concepts within the report suite. Here is the new version. If you haven't yet watched the introducing the new version of Google Analytics, keep in mind that all visitors have the ability to access the new version in a new version link when they log into Google Analytics. You can see, because I'm in the version, I have an old version link. But if you were to log in directly, you may need to click on New Version before you can get into your account. The location, we can go right to the location report, which is formerly known as Map Overlay. As if I'm navigating just a bit fast, again, most of the navigational concepts within Google Analytics were discussed in the last session. So do with me, or pause this video and go back to the video of navigating or introducing the new version of GA. So what we're going to do is just view segments along this dimension. The dimension we're looking at is country and territory, the available segments. The top 10 are listed here. So we have 185 segments that we could view in the drop-down menu if we wanted to see more. The flow analysis is to view that, yes, we have segments that represent this dimension and that their performance differs according to the metrics. And of course, we explore our more meaningful metrics such as goals. And what we're analyzing is, what are the conversion rates? How do the metrics differ among segments? First thing that we can do when you're talking about quick insights and quick analysis is do what's called simple segmentation. So I view a different dimension and the different segments with dimension appear. But very fast analysis, or very lightning speed analysis, as it claims to teach, what we'll do is click into a distinct segment. For this example, we'll be using the United States. And we're now looking, instead of an entire data set, we're looking just at the U.S. You can see here that this segment analyzer will always remind you of what percentage of your visits you're looking at. It represents about 22% of our Google blog visits. So in the U.S., we go one further dimension, and now we're looking at the dimension of region. These are the segments that are encapsulated in that. We don't have to stop there. One of the powerful but subtle tools within analytics is what's known as the complex segmentation tool. It's all with this other link. You'll find it in nearly every report. And what it allows you to do is, within this segment of U.S. visitors, again, that's what they have in common. They're all from the U.S. Understand what other aspects of these visitors are available for review. So when you click the link, you'll be presented with 4 categories that reflect our visit suite. And each of these categories will allow you to view other dimensions of segment. So, for example, if we wanted to know, well, what language are the browsers set to from people from the U.S., we'll get what you'll be looking at is for U.S. only, not for all visitors, what language the browsers are set to. And of course, it reflects that this is English-speaking language. But we don't have to stop there. We'll skip technology for now. But you could say, well, what sources is the U.S. from? I know what my top sources are in general. I want to know just my top sources from the U.S. So it's very helpful to start changing these dimensions to things that you can control. And the idea is that within the U.S., 22% of visitors top sources. And those top sources could look different for the UK, could look different for other language-speaking countries. We've got many people coming direct, obviously very strong brand presence, a number of people coming from Google, what looks to be a manually set source of Google.com, the search engine, feeder. Even further, for the US, what are the top keywords, and this is particularly helpful. If you want to know what the top keywords are within a specific country or even a specific city, as long as I isolate that segment, to view these other dimensions about it. So we'll show that example in just a moment. But it can be helpful to analyze what are the top keywords for a specific segment, what are the top ad contents for a specific segment, landing pages. And again, there's two ways to navigate through this. You can either search if you do know exactly the dimension you're looking for, or you can simply expand these little carrots to understand what you're able to analyze by. So the complex segmentation tool, I'm going to show you one more example of it in location before showing a few other features. So again, we set the location report before we went to the US and analyzed other dimensions. Now let's look at a specific city. So just take things up a bit. Illinois, to understand what's going on with those visitors, where they came from, and how their traffic might be reflected. So we've got the metrics along our Hanoi visitors, and I'm actually going to change that to goal set just to make it more relevant. And what language are Hanoi visitors their browser set to? Do we need to consider bilingual blogs for whatever reason? Fortunately, here a vast majority have them set to English, to regionalize. But I want to know more. How are visitors getting here? And if possible, what keywords are they using? And does that differ from other cities or other reasons that we could analyze? So what we may need to do at this point is export this list. And again, if we want to export the entire list, we may need to expand it. Export this list, and then other cities, and export those lists and do some offline comparison. Here that that our brand not quite as strong. More people are using FeedBurner or RSS feeder in this region than they were in the U.S. And our Google visitors are far lower than our organic Google visitors than they were in the U.S. And again, we could analyze what keywords are people most responsive to in this city, what campaigns are people most responsive to, ad contents, how does that change by region. What we've done here is first identified the event that we're interested in, drill or dive into it by clicking, and we learn more about that dimension using the complex segmentation tool. There's a number of ways to find segments. One is just to look down the list, change this, expand the number of rows, and simply view the segment based on the metrics that you want to analyze by. Is to do a quick search. So open run and of course we see Russia right here. And what is it searched along the dimension of country? Search for Russia. We can set that search with a little X there. Also use the advanced table search, so the last search we did was you can see that applied there. We can change this to the rows where the goal conversion rate is greater than, for this example, we use 50%. So it does actually use the number, not the, it's not a percentage like 0.50. You actually use 50, or it is you're trying to find above. Again, we have a very light conversion, which is to say more than one page or more than 2 pages per visit. So show me all the rows with more than 50% conversion rate. You can see a significantly different list here. All conversion rates are above 50%. Great way of using the advanced filter. And you can see that there are a number of metrics that you can filter by. And what you're doing is saying, show me the number of rows where this element reflects this rule. So bounce rate is less than 2%, for example. And you see for the very few sources where the bounce rate is less than 20%, it's usually very low traffic countries who have a high conversion rate. So let's check that. Back to a more relevant metric, where the goal conversion rate is greater than 50%. What we've done here is shown you how to do primary segment analysis. Literally look at a specific dimension, which you identify the dimension through the report you've chosen. And then they're analyzed by looking down the list of segments. You can search simply for a specific segment you want to review. You can do an advanced table search just to find certain segments that reflect a rule you'd like to apply. But these are all to identify segments. And once you go into a segment, you can try clicking on that segment. The complex segmentation tool to view other dimensions of this segment. So Spain represents 8.5%, much lower than the U.S. is 22%. But again, we can find out what ad content did people in Spain most likely to respond to. What source, and sometimes the processing might be a little slow as we move through the beta phase of this interface. What source are these visitors most likely to respond to? And again, significantly different from our U.S. traffic. Our brand is less strong, though stronger than it is in Vietnam. RSS feeder, still the most effective way to send out traffic, although Twitter making a larger presence here than it may have been in Vietnam. So I want to show a couple more examples of this in other reports, but right now, again, what we're trying to establish is how you identify segments, and you do that through searching or simply scanning. Once you get into segment, once you isolate a segment, what can you're there, and that question is answered by, well, what else can I know about this segment? Now I isolated the campaign segment of blog feeder, RSS feeder, or Google Analytics Blogspot RSS. If you wanted to know, well, what ad content are people responding to most often with this? Oops, excuse me, it's a different feature. Ad content are people wanting to know most about Blogspot. And to wrap back up, I'm looking at a segment, something about the visitor before they got to the site. This is the campaign that they saw. And what this row number 1 represents is a multi-dimensional segment. The first dimension is campaign, and it's visitors from this RSS feeder blog. The second dimension is ad content, and it's specifically the Google Feed Fetcher ad content as opposed to other ad content, right? Those are the kinds of questions that you can ask once you identify a segment. You identify a segment by drilling into it. But a segment can have more than one dimension to it. So we have a tool called the secondary dimension tool here, where in a single, let's say, for example, what the exercise I want to try is to click into each campaign and then segment by ad content. Well, for each I wanted to analyze that, I'd have to click a campaign, segment by content, export, click on campaign, refresh, click on this, by ad content, export, segment by click in a new GA blog, segment by ad campaign, ad content. You can see how you have to go through this repetitive process. Around that, if you know what you're going to be segmenting by next, and you're prepared to reckon with the amount of data you'll get, use what's called the secondary dimension. And you're simply applying that second level of dimensioning right in the primary report. Once it's finished, and the secondary dimension comes up. So what we're looking at here, not set, not set. This is a single dimension where neither the campaign has been manually set nor the ad content has been manually set. So if you're looking at the campaign dimension, not all visitors have a campaign dimension. In fact, most of them do not. Most of them are just visitors from either organic or free or untagged sources. So we can ignore those. If it is a segment of visitors, this is the next segment of visitors that we should find interesting. Visitors who came through this campaign and this ad content. You can see this campaign comes up over and over again, but with an ad content. So what can we do with this? Well, we can expand this and export. We can simply do the analysis within the interface and say, well, for my goal that I've set, what ad content drives the best performance based on the campaign it came from. So same ad content that you're using across multiple campaigns can be really helpful to analyze what ad content seems to match the best the campaign the best, because some ad contents, even if it's the same variations you're testing in different campaigns, some ad content will perform better in some campaigns than others. If you have the same campaign names, and you can see I X that out, but I'll show that again. If you have the same campaign names from multiple sources, for example, you have the same campaign names in Google and Bing and others, you can add a second dimension of source and see the same campaign and performs based on the different sources. So, and this allows for a more specific segment that you'd like to review, and as I mentioned, the more specific the segment you're looking at, the better you're able to make decisions to influence that segment. One segment needs just one row, even though it includes 2 dimensions. And then a dimension tool. This example of this in Pages, because it is fairly distinct in the content section. Some nav pages within site content. And you can see here, these are my segments. Visitors who came to this page. This is the home page. Visitors who come to this, to that. Right? So what you can do is you can isolate that segment by clicking into it. And you can either know more about it, such as, well, what geography is sending the visitors to this page, or what technology does the technology influence the way the visitors are perceiving this page. So, for example, some screen resolutions might not adjust to this page better than as well as others, and therefore you might have a higher bounce rate with certain screen resolutions. You can see the low bounce rate exists in the most common dimension of screen resolution. This is but there's a higher bounce rate for some other resolutions and lower for others. So it may be worth testing those resolutions to understand, well, is it coming through the way that I imagine? Does screen resolution really have an effect on the page, or is it just something else about the user? Also do, instead of using this complex dimension tool, is click on the navigation summary at the top. And this is effectively isolating this segment still. So we're still looking at this segment. People who are looking at this page, represents about 10% of our viewers. We can know is questions like there's a previous page, right? This is another dimension about visitors on this page. What was their next page, right? So this is still in a very large sense, just knowing of another dimension of this specific segment. Back to the Explorer. You analyze a tremendous amount about this specific page. Actually, go to landing pages. I think that was the other report I was looking for. Again, we can isolate a specific segment. This is the same page we were looking at before. New Google Analytics Overview reports. Number of and bounces are the metrics we're going to analyze this by. Looking at this segment, you'll notice this is a little bit different. This is not the segment of everybody who's looked at this page, the segment of everybody who's entered at this page. They have to have come from outside the site. So from all of the landings, this represents about 15% of all total landings. Even though it's 10% of all total page views, landings are specific. Now we've isolated the segment, we can go to entrance paths and see. Once this page, what was the next page? After that, so if at the readership, they set the new Google Analytics Overview page. Many of them searched through a label and then left through one of these pages, and a bit additional insight on this page. Or still looking at the same segment, 14.5% of total entrances, we can say sources sent visitors to this page. For purposes, we can say what keywords, when they did send a keyword, what key sent traffic to this page. And again, all visits send a keyword. In fact, very few set a keyword for this one. But you can at least start to understand the sources. They add content. We're most likely to send visitors who viewed this page or land this page. Again, very intelligent analysis, very deep analysis done very, very quickly through a complex segmentation tool, or simply the concept of identifying a single segment and then pivoting around that segment to know more other dimensions that could be meaningful to you. So this concept of pivoting, you identify and pin down a segment, and then by pinning that down, you're looking at other aspects of that segment of visitors. Other than secondary dimensions, what can we do with this? Well, the concept here is, again, to identify segments and analyze the performance of that segment so that you can then either make action or make a more specific segment. So one way of doing this is to go to each report and then select the segment you want to identify and then learn more about it. However, another way to pivot around segments is to simply use the Advanced Segment tool. So I'm going to go to the overview and show you Advanced Segments. And this is familiar to those of you who have used Advanced Segments in the past, but just to review, what is Advanced Segments looking at? By defaults, we're looking at all visitors. That is the segment, which is, say, not a segment at all. It's simply all your visitors. However, if what we were really concerned about analyzing were new visitors, we could apply that segment and now to the reports just looking at new visitors, visitors that was their first time within the date range you're looking at. For example, if what you're really concerned about, and you consider segment here, as you actually, in just a quick point, carry through the reports, you'll note that you're still looking at the same segment, and this is one way to verify you've got the right segment, is to find the report where those visitors live and confirm that that's all you're looking at. So what you're really concerned about is search traffic. You can apply that segment and then navigate through the reports, do the analysis only on the visitors who matter to you. Now again, why is this important? Well, just because one segment appears to be doing better than another doesn't mean that there's not a specific aspect or dimension of that segment that's driving its performance. So it could be that California appears to be doing better than New York traffic at longer conversions, but what's really driving the performance or with control over is your search traffic. And so it's better to analyze within search the performance changes or how the performance differs so that you can upon that. So one of the easiest ways to start getting involved in advanced segments is to simply start clicking around and comparing these segments. You can also benchmark these segments against all visits, what implies that you can compare segments. So it's it's highly recommended to pick segments that are meaningful in their comparison versus returning, paid versus non-paid, and more in a moment, and compare those two segments. And you can see we're comparing them here. As you move around, you should constantly be able to compare the metrics. That is to move out of the standard report into reports where this analysis may be more insightful. To location, you can quickly see what is the performance of new versus returning visitors in the various regions. This data wasn't possible to get, but you'd have to do some serious segmentation analysis, such as go into the United States and then segment by new versus returning. In many cases, this isn't even data that was otherwise available in the interface. So again, what we're looking at here is where is there a significant difference between versus returning performance in each tree, and what do we do about that? So if Spain and Italy are seeing significant performance differences, and particularly within new, the new visitors seem to be the most likely to click in. Well, what we can know about this, since it's a blog, it's very likely that old visitors don't feel the need to click through multiple pages since they come regularly. And if they're feeling a little bit more exploratory and they'd like to figure out, is there any content that I should be reviewing? You can do the same for other important traffic sources or content and better understand how do these segments compare. And it's difficult, certainly not impossible, to find what segments are most meaningful for me. For example, if you have goal conversion set up, which you should have, you can choose visits with conversions. If you have e-commerce set up, you can choose visits with transactions and say, well, what are the visits like who send me conversions? What sources are sending me the most conversions? What landing pages convert most often? Good example, the landing page is one. Or if you wanted to know conversion rate by landing page, you could set an you could compare all visits against visits with conversions. By glance comparison to get a % difference, or you could export this and simply divide visits by conversions by all visits and know that this page has a probably 30% conversion rate. This landing page, however, has a 60% conversion rate. This landing page has 60%. This landing page only has a 25% landing conversion rate. So although this equation needs to be done offline, or I'll show you some other ways that you could possibly perform this, these advanced segments can provide a tremendous amount of insight by comparing segments to each other. Segmentation is analysis, and your goal is twofold. One, identify the most important or interesting segments. That doesn't mean the best segments, but the most interesting ones. And then two, compare other interesting segments so you realize the delta. You want to know the difference between segments' performance so that you can optimize the better, or you can push the better segment even further and optimize the worse segment to perform better. Those are default segments. I'm going to set this back to all visits to bring it back to the standard. But what we can do is create custom segments to fill in the gaps where they otherwise might exist. Apply this, we can see that created a number of segments here. You can create a new custom segment here, but that'll actually bring you to the screen. I'm going to take you to it in a moment. This is a little bit like a cooking show where I've got the meal prepared before we walk in. So if we want to know visits with conversions, that's one thing, but let me know also visits without conversions. So otherwise I just click new. And again, the idea here is you name it something obvious, you exclude, and what this is doing is saying, out of all my visitors, show the visitors that meet this rule. So all of your dimensions and metrics, and this is why it's important to get familiar with the complete segmentation tool, because it starts to introduce you to the names of these. So you can either scroll through all of them, or you can start typing. I like to target things like total, since the total is very interesting. But you know exactly what you're looking for, you can type that in there as well. I suggest getting familiar with these. Even though it's a long list, they should be relatively reasonable to understand. So the goals, the visits, where total goal conversions equals 0. So again, you're analyzing individual visits. For every visit, show me the one where a goal completion equals 0, so they did not convert. And you can preview that segment, or you can simply save it. And that segment loads. We're going to pick at times reset the segments. We want to compare visits without conversions to visits with conversions. We want to remove visits. We're going to press apply. And this is going to show is how do the landing pages without conversions compare to the ones that are with that convert. Should equal about the total. Now, this doesn't mean you won't see a little bit of sampling. And what does sampling mean? Well, that just means that we, just for the sake of getting you this report quickly, we take a statistically significant sample of your entire visit set and just the visitors, the percentage of your visitors that is meaningful to the whole. So these numbers might not be 100% accurate. What you're really looking for here are trends, not the most accurate numbers. And you sacrifice accuracy for speed with Google Analytics, but we think that as we continually improve our algorithms for sampling, you'll find more and more value without having to worry about did I get the exact number, and you'll be much more excited to see how the trends perform. And so this is simply a split conversion rate, how many did convert as opposed to didn't convert. When you apply this to other sources, such as traffic or keywords, you can start to understand, well, what did visitors who didn't convert, what did it look like? What were the distinguishing marks? What geographies did they come from? What traffic sources did they come from? Visits with and without conversions is just the start of complementary segment analysis. Complementary segment analysis is what I refer to when you have two more segments, a whole, so visits without and visits with, right? So there'd be search visitors and non-search visitors, right? That comprises everybody. New, returning. Those are complementary segments that tell a story about the entire pool of your visitors. How you create a custom segment, right? You click on the custom segment, you pick what you want to analyze by, and then you create the rule that meets it. However, these can get increasingly complex. But just starting light, right? What I first suggest doing is finding a report that includes a segment that you want to know more about, right? So we find that landing page that we thought was interesting, the new Google Analytics overview, and what I'll do is just copy that, and then I'll go and create an advanced segment, new custom segment. And again, if I have to double check it, I'm looking right at this dimension. This is the segment I want right here. I want to capture that and learn more about it. So language is the dimension. So I'm just going to go up here. Page contains, and it auto-populates the URL that you're looking at in most cases. So if we call this new GA overview landing page, this segment, this is a very specific segment, but you can see it must have worked. It represents about 14% of the traffic, and what we really are looking for is here are all visits. That's what we saw before. But GA landing page captures only visitors who've landed on that page and none other. So we'll Go ahead and save. And then we'll have all of it to isolate a segment. It's up to you to determine what metrics make a segment meaningful or interesting to you. And there, you can see there's some cases where landing pages are similar but have an X parameter. Even so, it's still meaningful to me. You can see the whole life cycle of this segment. Certainly, at least to me. Navigate other reports, you can say, well, what traffic sources? Again, this is similar to the analysis we did before while we isolated that segment. What traffic sources sent visits this guy within that traffic source? What would best add content? And this process might take a little bit longer to load just because we're looking at such a distinct segment, and the rest of all of these reports come pre-aggregated as we process them for quick review. Whenever you go outside of the aggregation, it can take a little bit longer to load. Since we created a custom segment, we can't possibly have aggregated for all custom segments that are available. So as these load, you can just see that what we're looking at is the sources that sent traffic to that landing pages, the campaigns that sent traffic to that landing page. Keywords or ad content. You can get keywords that sent traffic to that landing page as opposed to just the paid keywords. Tremendous amount of analysis. Just really, I mean, industry speeds compared to the depth of analysis that you're performing on this data. And such a small data set at that. We're looking now at just 0.01% of all your visitors, and yet we're able to quickly dive in and say, for specific landing pages, what were the organic keywords that sent traffic? I'm sending social traffic. I can say, well, how did that perform, and what did it look like compared to other types of social efforts? So if there were Twitter and Facebook, just tremendous amounts of data about what you're trying to explore all in one place. One more type of segment for you, just to give you another sense of how to create custom segments. And the easy to start with custom segments is find the segment you want to analyze and just recreate that, and then just start exploring other reports and see what else you can know. If you've created a segment, start to explore other reports and do other segmentation and other complex segmentation, and as I've showed you. So if we wanted to create a custom segment, we can call what I call a tail segment. This is something where it's a kind of a group of similar segments. So branded keywords is the segment we want to create. So third is what we're looking at. And we can say it contains Google. And that means, well, there are lots of keywords that contain Google, but I want to know about all of them as a group. So if we put that segment, even saved it, you can see only 8% of our visitors came through branded keywords. But well, I know that there are actually other that I want to know about. So there's Google, or visitors who came through the keyword analytics. Or visitors who came through the keyword. Let's see if there's spellings of analytics that I want to know about. Or if there were multiple types of keywords. So this tailored segment is similar, one dimension, similar steps. It's very helpful if there's misspellings, right? G-O-O-G-L or G-O-G-L-E-G-L. Use what's called a pipe. You can see this little, looks like L. It's actually shift / for those of you who have a PC, although on a Mac, I think it's a similar one, probably Apple / anyway, the pipe means or. So or rules and create as many or rules as you'd like. Or you can just put the pipe, edit, pipe, misspelling, and analyze that segment. That's a tailored segment, branded keywords. There are others that I could show you, for example, multi-dimensional segments. About 10 minutes left, so I might just wrap up with custom reports. But the idea here is that you're trying to pivot around a segment that's meaningful to you. Either they've done something that you like, or they did something you didn't like, or they did something you don't understand and you need to learn more about, you isolate what you can, learn segment, it down a little bit more, and then come back and say, well, it's not just branded keywords that I'm interested in. It's actually branded organic keywords. So if I edited this, said keywords who came through Google, and they medium is organic, not paid. Or it's actually keywords who people came from a branded keyword through not paid from the United States. Right? What we're doing is continually narrowing down this segment. What we want to do is influence their behavior in some way. So let's say we were buying paid search, so Google CPC from the US or Google CPC from California. We want to know what our brand paid traffic just from California or even just San Francisco is like. So we can know a tremendous amount about our visitors by honing down a very, very, very specific segment and performing an analysis on that. So what we want to know about these? Well, what landing pages were they going to? What pages were they looking at? How many of these people were converting? Did they use my internal site search? Trigger any events or custom variables? There's almost an endless amount of information you can know about them. What did San Francisco visitors respond to? What ad content were they most responsive to? What campaigns were they most engaged with? Just worth of data that you can start to analyze as you hone down specific segments. And they can be single-dimensional segments, they can be default segments, they can be multidimensional, hyper-complex segments. The idea is that you're exploring and isolating specific segments and then trying to know what else you can about them. For the sake of time, I'm going to try to wrap up with custom reports. If you were on the last session, you noticed that custom reports have moved. The tab is now up here. And you can create multiple custom reports. You can name them very easily. You can share them with increasing visibility, and there are certain features that will continue to roll out, such as being able to share with other profiles. But if you just want to share a specific custom report with someone, you can do that by copying the URL below. So what are some good custom reports to start with? The first one I like to talk about is the simple custom report. And that's, some of these reports, by the way, will not have much or any data in them because of they have in our Google Analytics blog account, but should have some data. In some cases, not very much or not very meaningful. But the first is a simple custom report. And what is it? Well, it's strictly that. You isolate one dimension that you want to know more about, and you simply list as few metrics as that person needs to tell the story that they need to know. Right? You try to actually give less data, not more, and you give them just what they need to know. So you can even go by other tabs to give other data. But again, the idea is that you're making them work the least amount for it. You don't even, for simple reports, you don't even want to allow them to click into to do other analysis because again, they might not know exactly what they're looking at. And this is just a high level or a medium level, I would say, overview of what they need to know. So this, we can see what the guts look like. This is what a custom report looks like. You give it a name. We'll talk about this in just a moment. You give each tab a name, and we'll talk about what a flat table is in a moment as well. You give the metric group a name if you want, but what you're looking at is, you pick metric from you can either scroll down, you can type metric in, you can word within the metric, and look for. So if we need to know our visits and completions and conversion rate, then you get those three metrics. Select the dimension that you want to analyze. You want them to analyze by. There are a few new ones you hadn't seen before, such as date, month, week, and hour, depending on what metrics you've chosen. You just pick one dimension. You allow them to drill because it starts to get into a complex custom report. They'll have to know more about this process. But that said, you can share these custom reports, you can export them, and increasingly share these around your organization or your client's organization as needed. That's the simple custom report. Complex custom report will allow you to do multiple levels of analysis, and what this will let you do is do the analysis you would have done with something like the complex segmentation tool. Here, keyword. And remember last time we took, for an example, we could have chosen a keyword and then used the other complex dimension tool to select a landing page. Well, a complex custom report will help you skip that step. Going from keyword, drilling in, only the we're concerned about. We can see directly landing page, and we can go to landing page, and instead of using the complex segmentation tool, we can just see what keyword is for. And the idea here is that you're skipping the step of using the complex dimension tool. How do we do this? Let's click on Edit, our SEO analysis page. We add another dimension. And what we've done here is the metrics that we're most interested in, the way that we'd like to drill through our data, and we showed that before by drilling, click on a single segment, and then you use the other tool to learn more about it. However, here you can see that the other tool is not necessary. And even add filters. Well, what does a filter do? It allows you to limit what segment of data you start with, so that ignoring data doesn't matter. So this is SEO analysis. We only need organic traffic, right? And if we apply that filter, avoid any unnecessary traffic. That's the start of a complex segment report, and this data was available in the interface, right? You could have gone into a keyword and segmented by landing page. Some data, however, is not really available through the interface. There's complex custom reports. There's unique complex custom reports. It's hour, if you remember, you might not have noticed, but there's no way to segment a specific. There's no way to look at the dimension of hour for a specific segment within the normal interface. So if we know what of the day is FeedBurner sending me the most traffic, and should I be aware of this to optimize accordingly? In the standard interface, we're going to get that information in just a moment here, although again it's going to be encrypted, so you may need to back it out. And the hour based on the actual day. So you can export this, transform this data as needed, and look at it in another way. What the guts of this looks like. Now we've got hour of day. We also have just hour, which would just not for and the day, would just show you hour individually. And again, we've got the metrics that we're interested in. And we save that. Unique analysis. This was not available otherwise. Unique analysis by looking at specific sources or specific geographies and say, well, what hours do those people, is that dimension sending me traffic? Is that segment sending me traffic? What are the others that are sending me the traffic? And what hours are sending me the best traffic? Right? I didn't have goal conversion rate, but it would have been very easy to put them there. So hour is just a fantastic way to know, well, what hours of the day are my tweets working best? Hour of the day should I be launching campaigns or dropping the most money into a paid campaign? Hour of the day do certain cities or certain states respond best to, and maybe targeting campaigns into regions based on the hours that they are performing the best. Unique custom report, very, very powerful. I saw how easy it was to put this together. As long as you have control over what metrics are available in GA, are available in GA. And every dimension can be mapped to every metric. Not every dimension can drill into every other dimension. Pretty darn close. Since you're working with a database, unlike many other tools, you can segment your data basically any way that was meaningful to you. That table is just real briefly to cap this training off, but just tremendous. I hope you've at least had impressed upon you what it's like to go deep within data, looking at minuscule percentages if you're in total data set, and then working within them. This is just tremendously powerful information. So here you can see for flat tables, one example that I like to use is very common is to merge cost sources. So you can't import cost sources from other marketing campaigns into GA. You should look for opportunities to export your data out of GA and map it to cost sources individually. So if we've been running display campaigns through something like DFA or AdWords even, but DFA or other content networks, then we can say, just show me the visitors who've come through display. And we're going to go to keywords first, and you're going to change it from Explorer to Flat Table, and set dimensions that are meaningful for us. So in this place, we want to do campaign and keyword, and this one campaign and ad content. Mind you, you'll notice this is like secondary dimensions. You're still looking at a single segment of your visitors, notably campaign and ad content, and then you're defining what metrics you want to measure them by. Now, when you display advertising to send people to the GA blog, I'm going to take that filter off. But what it allows you to do is save this report, export your cost center information in the same way, for example, with campaign and keyword, and you simply go along the list, mapping it to the row. And it takes a little bit of time, but it can be extremely effective in knowing, well, for whatever I paid for this campaign and keyword, how many of those people visited, turned out how many of those people converted, what was the conversion rate, what was my cost per conversion, right? At e-commerce, you could even know that was my return on ad spend, so long as you're able to effectively map campaign keywords or campaign and ad copy for a display campaign to your cost source information. And so flat tables, again, each of these are segments. They're each like a secondary dimension that you've added. Very, very powerful for mapping the cost data or mapping to other cost sources or just doing general widespread analysis. And again, you can export up to 500 rows at a time. Go to the next page, export 500 more if you need to. Just a very, very helpful little way to view campaign performance. And this is, again, sortable, analyzable by most of the standard ways you would want to do this. Concludes this session. Hopefully you've gotten a sense of what the types of visitor segments are and how you can quickly identify visitor segments within Google Analytics, how to use custom reports and advanced segments to better understand the segments of your visitors, and how to generally make positive use of the extremely advanced options within Google Analytics. And I end with the title slides so that you can review here. Our next session, showing multi-channel media, will allow you to better understand how campaign tracking works within Google Analytics and how it'll set you up for some future feature launches that are very exciting. This will include a deeper analysis of how to optimize for AdWords and SEM, as optimize for display and other non-direct response media, such as social or possibly even mobile advertising. Finally, we'll talk about how to measure customer engagement by using the full analysis tracking feature set within GA that includes event tracking, custom variables, and others. And then we'll wrap up with analytics partnerships opportunities. I look to hopefully having you all live, or at least having you watch the recorded version of the first sessions. Thanks so much, and do have a great day.